Welcome, I'm Adrian Park with Intergraph Process Power Marine. I'm the Vice President for our Smart Plant Enterprise Solutions. And today we're going to discuss the topic of handover, the handover of data and documentation throughout the facility lifecycle. And to help us today we have three distinguished panelists with me. We have Alan Tough from Dunlinton Consulting. We have Fayez Saris from Gasco and Adam Head from Information Quality. So, first of all, gentlemen, I'd like to ask you to present yourselves. Alan?
Good afternoon. My name is Alan Tough. I'm, as you say, from Dunlinton, but I've been the data manager for the last 6 years on a major capital project in the North Sea for ConocoPhillips.
Fayez?
Fayez Saris I work for Gasco in Abu Dhabi for the last 34 years. And I'm responsible for Smart Plant Enterprise System in Gasco.
Okay, right. Adam.
My name's Adam Head, good afternoon, from Information Quality in Perth, engineering data management company. We service the oil and gas and mining industry and particularly look after owner-operators using the Smart Plant suite of applications. Okay,
well, thank you very much. So, you're all three today involved one way or another with presentations at the conference regarding handover. Alan and Fayez, you're presenting. Adam, one of your colleagues, is doing a presentation on the subject of handover. So the first thing I'd like to ask about is, why is the topic of handover so important to both owner operators and EPCs? Alan, perhaps you could start us off.
Well, my opinion is that it isn't actually as important to the oil companies and to the contractors. Fundamentally, it's the owner-operator who needs the information. Right. So the handover is driven by them. They want the information. They want the information to be assembled during the project. The engineering contractor is driven by our requirements, and frankly will do as little as they are paid to do. And fundamentally, we get what we measure. So in this space, what tends to happen is that if we decide that we want a certain data set, the engineering contractor will contract to provide that as a handover package. However, the bit that does interest them is the speed of engineering design. So that actually where information is useful for them is actually speeding that internal process. I think handover for them is an encumbrance and probably more problems than it is an opportunity.
So I guess their interest is to actually reduce the cost, to actually be able to do that efficiently.
I'm not sure even reduce the cost, because in most contracts we pay them for the hours they put into it. Right. And because we pay for them for the hours that they put into it, we tend to get it, basically that drives their behaviour. Right. So consequently, they're more interested in making sure that it's clear what we want, but then they'll use their traditional processes to drive the deliverables.
Okay, thanks. So Fayez, from your point of view, why do you see it as important? You're all working for an owner-operator.
Yeah. In addition to what Alan said, I can talk briefly about the importance of handover. It's very important because handover of poor quality of data results in costly physical verification of data prior to undertaking modifications and revamp activities. Second, incorrect decisions based on incorrect data resulting in costly mistakes. Right. Example, buying incorrect replacement parts and reworks. Yeah. Very simple.
I agree with you. Yeah. So Adam, you as information quality, you get involved with a lot of handover situations. How do you see it being important for both owners and EPCs?
Yeah, I think the age-old adage, prevention's better than the cure. Every asset, needs to be environmentally and safety compliant. They need to have maximum productivity, but for the minimal cost. So. It's impossible to measure any of that criteria without an accurate, complete and comprehensive handover of the information associated with running those assets. And to get that retrospectively is a lot more of an effort and costs a lot more than it would do during the project phase. So.
Right. Okay, so we're all agreed that handover is important, particularly to the owners, but it has impact also on the EPCs. So the question is, in your experience, what are the prerequisites to have a successful handover? Perhaps Fayez, perhaps you could start us off on that one.
Yeah, from my own experience, there are 4 prerequisites to have and to achieve a successful handover. First, you have to have the engineering numbering specification procedures, which has the PBS hierarchy, plant area unit, the documents and engineering procedure naming convention, and DGS design general specification for all instrument items list, and tag numbering system for equipment, instrument piping, and piping specialty. And you have to have the SPF and the SP tools seed database files. This is, second is the life cycle information data. You have to know what the contractor is going to deliver and when. Format and tools for database, 3D model, and 2D CAD. A checklist and deliverables to be given to the contractor at this stage. As built, drawing and documents. The third one is input to your contract scope of work. Identify coordinator and EPC contractor with responsibility for smart plan delivery. Ask for early access for data handover and documentation. Ask for early review of deliverables from disciplines, electrical, mechanical, instrument process, to ensure understanding and compliance. And all these are subject to project audit.
Right.
The fourth one is you have to have an information manager with the responsibility for the asset. His role is to ensure that contractors understand your requirement, understand company requirement, ensure follow-up with the contractors during the project progress, plan and undertake audits. Like at the time of project completion, 30%, 60%, 90%, he has to make plan for a demo. The third one is his role is to validate deliverables. This is the information manager role.
Right.
So 4 things.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Adam, do you have any supplements to that?
Look, I think Fayez spoke in great detail there, and I support everything that he said. I think the key thing is having a very concise and prescriptive set of data specifications that dictate how you hand those deliverables over and in what format, and how the tools need to be handed over so that they can be used effectively in the owner-operate phase. I think typically owner-operators don't do that well, so as a result they ask for everything, and focus is diminished on what's actually important and critical to operating the asset, where of course the EPCs are only interested in designing, procuring and constructing that asset, not so much what the requirements are in the operate maintain phase. So at IQ we talk about handover as a negotiation, so if you've got a clear set of specifications, you know how to negotiate what for and what's important. So yeah, I think that's the key.
Okay. So Alan, in your view, is there any other prerequisites we need to look at?
I think it's interesting. I think you more or less gave my presentation that I'm giving on Thursday. I would agree with everything that you've said. The one thing I would add to it is that when you go into a project, you set the bar at a particular height, and that really determines how ambitious you're going to be in terms of getting the data collected. The things that you outlined, I totally agree with. And then I think the next level on that is to say, are you going to be ambitious and go for very comprehensive data, very wide and deep, based on the specifications and the processes you were describing, or is it that the company that you're dealing with is very immature, and therefore they actually don't have the same concept about managing information in that way, and therefore you set the bar much lower. However, it's always backed up by the specs, the processes, having the right team and people and so on, as you described. So yeah, I would go along with that.
Okay, thanks. So we've got these prerequisites in place, but then how do we actually ensure that we verify that the handover is correct, complete, and not least consistent? So Adam, obviously your company works a lot in this area.
Yeah.
How do you go about ensuring that?
Exactly, and that was going to be my point. I mean, thank you for asking that question, because that's exactly what we do. We sit in between EPCs and owner-operators on major capital projects, and also assist owner-operators with legacy assets in defining what their requirements are and what they need to maintain their compliance from a legislative and safety perspective. Specifically, I think we spoke about it before, specifications are very important, so I'd say that needs to be up front to define those requirements. Specifically, we sit in there and utilise the tools. I think the Smart Plant suite of applications is very good. We've got teams of people that utilise those tools and can interrogate those tools to produce reports and report on the KPIs associated with data complexity and the completeness and accuracy of the engineering data and deliverables going forward. So that's how we do it. Works quite well. I think you have to have an integrated team in there that work with the owner-operator personnel and the EPCs, and it gives the owner-operators that transparency they require, but also assists the EPCs in understanding their requirements.
Okay. So Alan, you've been working on some of these very large offshore projects.
Yep.
So what sort of measures do you put into place on your projects?
Well, I think that when you look at data, it's your specifications that determine, because that's your measuring stick. So if your specifications say that you're going to have data that's this wide and this deep, then that becomes your yardstick by which you measure the data that's coming across. Then after that, it's actually how consistent the data actually is. So you were referring to that in the answer you gave to the earlier point.
Yeah.
How consistent is the data across different places, and how complete is it against the specifications you put in place becomes critical. It's also looking at which sources are going to produce which deliverables. I'll give 2 examples. One is, if you look at electrical cable schedules. So in Intergraph world, practically every tool can produce a cable schedule. We've got cable schedules that we produce for construction, and we then have cable schedules that we need when we do ongoing plant modification. So which is the right cable schedule?
Yeah, exactly.
And how do you generate it? And how are you going to test that it's of the right quality and consistency? If you've ever dealt with a project where there's greenfield and brownfield requirements in there, if you look at things like loops for instruments, for example, and you look at you're replacing field instruments, and you've got loops that were done many years ago using older techniques, and maybe even they're only hand drafted in AutoCAD or something. How far do you go to engineer that information so that you get consistent information out of that project? These are big decisions, and I think they're all driven out the starting point, which is where you set the bar.
And your specifications. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
So, Fayez, any particular measures that you put in place to make sure your data is absolutely correct, complete and correct?
Yeah, I'm going to talk what are we been practicing in Gasco. For this handover, first we ask the contractor that we need an early access to handover of data and documentation by our end users so they can verify the data.
Yep.
And also review of deliverables from mechanical instrument, from all disciplines, to make sure understanding and compliance, that the contractor is in compliance. We do the data consistency report. We generate it also for all the tools, and we generate this from SPF also. You can generate this data consistency. It will clearly, SPF will give you a very clear data consistency report. The 4th one is we do first and second level of VTL validation. First level by EPC contractor, second level by Gasco. This is what we are doing. And the last one is make sure that you have to conduct FAT and SAT for each project. FAT and SAT. FAT, we check data consistency, everything, publishing, extraction of isometric drawings, etc. All these will be tested in FAT and SAT. If you have all these 5, I'm sure you will have a very successful handover. And recently, in last first week of April, we have received 1 ROES storage tank. It was a beautiful system. The data handover was perfect as per our requirements. What I did talk over here is really what we are practicing in Gasco. And really we are successful following these practices.
Yeah. So the answer seems to be that we have to be actually proactive. It's not only the specification.
Oh, yeah.
You actually have to go out, you verify,
Yes.
you make sure everyone understands, and you check.
Oh, yeah.
You inspect, you do not expect.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to be a policeman as well.
Okay, so clearly this is a subject where we could probably talk for several hours. We don't really have the time here, so we have to start wrapping up really now. So first of all, I'd like to thank you very much for coming and discussing this with us. Very interesting, and I look forward to your presentations. And the presentations will be put onto our website at the end of the conference. So from us, thank you very much indeed.